Anyone else going to join the classroom?
All right.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to.
Okay.
So if I remember last class, where we left off, we had a very kind of wonky checkerboard thing going on. But we were able to select checkers and sort of move them, okay? And so we're going to finish, hopefully finish moving checkers today. That's the goal,
Yay.
okay? Right now, if I, let me bring up my console here, and let's put that on the side of the screen.
We're playing a
Alright.
game. We get a gaming console. That's
No.
fun.
So if I click this checker, it always moves to 4-1, and of course, clicking other ones after that doesn't do anything. So any checker I click will automatically move to 4-1 initially, and then other checkers won't move there. But on the plus side, we are selecting a checker, and we are effectively moving a checker. Okay, so now we just need to. Well, the first thing we need to do is not call move whenever we select a checker. Okay, because obviously we don't want that behavior, right? If I click a checker, we don't want it to automatically try to move, right? And what's the problem there? Someone help me out, Zoe. And I'll put the console up, and it might.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
It might help. All right, so I clicked that box, and it said I'm selecting the checker, right? And then a few more statements, and then it said, then it called move checker here, and then it rendered the cells. Okay, so what's our problem? Anybody?
Is it that you're re-rendering the checkers every time?
No, I mean we do want to re-render the checkers. That's the way we're going to move them. Okay, but you're kind of going in the right direction. Okay, let me ask you this: when I click on a checker the first time, what do I want to do?
Have it selected.
Just select it.
I just want to select it. Do I want to move it? No. Okay, so the fact that if you move checker here, right here, this output statement, that's in this. Actually, I've got it open right here. That means I've called move selected checker here. And the first time I click a checker, I don't want to move it. That make it sense? Okay. So so why is it? Tell me why is it calling that method? What's doing the call? So what calls move selected checker? You can figure that out with a pretty quick text search. Yeah.
Just on the click,
It's on the click of what?
the black cell.
On black cell clicks. Yep. When I click on a black cell, I move the checker to that black cell. Okay. And I can't click on a checker without also clicking on a black cell. Right? Does that make sense? So I've got a couple of options. All right. One option is to, when I click on a black cell, to check to see if there is already a checker in that cell. Okay? And if there is, maybe I say, okay, don't do anything else. Okay? You tracking that? The one reason that might be an issue is down the road, I do want to do something if I click on the checker the second time. Okay? So if I click on, excuse me, if you click on a black cell, and they're already, or I'm sorry, if I click on a checker, and I have already clicked on that checker, so this is the second time I'm clicking on a checker, I want to move it off. Like, that's how I'm going to remove it. Okay? And so in that situation, I want to do something, okay? And we would, this is, I'm gonna actually have to, you guys are gonna just miss this on the video, okay? But, so, we gotta think of the different possibilities that I want to do. if I click on an empty black cell, okay, I want to move the checker here, right? If I click there, and wait, if I click here, and there is a checker selected, right? Okay. If I click here and there's already a checker there, I don't want to do anything. Unless there's already a checker selected, right? In which case I want to take that checker off the board. All right. But if I click on a checker, I want to select the checker. All right. So it gets a little bit. It's funny. We're talking about checkers here, okay? And already it gets the logic is getting a little bit complex, okay? So we got a couple of ways to handle this, all right? Because everything happens when we click on a black checker, okay? So we could put everything in one sort of master click handler that does everything, okay? If I click on a black checker, then I'm going to check lots of different things, like is it empty, and there's a checker, selected, then move a checker here, right? Is it empty and there's no checker selected, then don't do anything, right? Is there a checker selected and the checker that's selected is this checker, right? Then move me off the board, okay? Is there no checker selected and there's a checker here? Well, then select this checker. Okay, so you see, there gets to be a lot of different, the logic is a little bit complex, okay? The other option, and that's the one that I've already started going down, is to have a click handler for the checker and a click handler for the black cell, okay? So when I click, okay, now that would work great if I only had the black cell click handler on the empty black cells. Then things get really simple, right? Okay, if it's just an empty black cell click handler, then that's pretty easy. Okay, in other words, move a checker. If there's a checker selected, move it here. Otherwise, don't do nothing. Okay, and the logic for clicking on a checker becomes very simple because if this checker is not selected, then select it. If it is selected, then remove it from the table. Okay? So by separating that logic, you end up with fewer permutations, fewer options of what to do. That make sense? Okay? It's kind of like, how many of you guys have taken biology? Hope, Caleb, you guys take. All right, and have you guys done genetics? Right, you did the little square.
Punnett square.
Right, Punnett square. Yeah. Okay, have you ever done it with like more than one like set? What happens to the square? Like if you have just two options, how many boxes do you have inside the square? 4. Right? What if you're working with 4 options, then how many do you have?
16, I think, right?
16. Yeah. And if you had 8 options, how many would you have? 64, right? Okay, things get complex really fast. So but if you could separate them out, then you would have, if you could separate those 4 into just 3 individual boxes, you'd have 12 options. That makes sense? You have 3 boxes with 4 things in them. Okay? So that's one of the things with development. Sometimes if you can just break your problem apart into different things, then it becomes a little bit easier. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. Our problem right now is that the black cell click handler is on all the black cells, and we just want it on the empty black cells, right? And I think I asked this question the other day to kind of get us going in that direction. When do we know whether or not a black cell has a checker in it? When do we know which black cells are going to have a checker in them?
After render checkers.
Close. Very close. Anybody else want to try?
Is it in like the div inside of the function?
I mean, you could actually go into, you could inspect the divs, but that would require another process. Okay. When I am over here rendering the checkers, okay, right after I render a checker, what do I know about that black cell?
Whether it has a checker or not.
Was as soon as I render a checker, I know which black cell I rendered it in, right?
Yeah.
And I know that that black cell is full or empty.
It's full if it has a checker in it.
It's full, right? And it should or shouldn't have my click handler. It should not. The black cell shouldn't do anything. If I click a black cell with a checker in it, what can I do? What should I do?
Select that one.
No, that's when I click a checker.
Move it.
So, no, I should do nothing. Okay? When I'm clicking the black cell, here, guys, let me bring the picture back up, and it'll help you guys out a little bit. Okay? Let me get rid of this. Okay? You have to differentiate between clicking on a black cell and clicking on a checker. Okay? If I click, because right now there's two click handlers here, and that's why I'm selecting the cell and immediately moving the checker. Okay? So I just want one of those things to happen. I want to select the checker. So if I click on a black cell, right, and there's a checker in it, I don't want to do anything. I don't want a click handler on that black cell. Okay? So you guys tracking me? Who's confused? Raise your hand if you're confused. Seriously, it's totally okay, because I know this is a little bit deep. All right. So basically, what I've got here is I have, oh, look, we actually started working on it here. Remember we were trying to unbind the click handler at the end of last class? Okay, so this is a bit of a review. I forgot we actually started working on that. So here we've got a handle to the cell. This cell right here with cell row whatever and cell number whatever, right? This cell is, we want to actually unbind the click handler, okay? And I believe the command is actually unbind click. Okay? Does that make sense? So I just put a checker here, so I know I don't want to move any checkers here. I can't put two checkers in the same spot. Okay? Now this would be a little different if we're playing chess, right? Because in chess you put one piece on top of another, right? And then you have to do something a little bit different, but we're not.
If you're capturing.
Yes, if you're capturing a piece. So if, but in this case, we know that if I've got a checker selected, or if there's a checker in this spot, I shouldn't be moving anything to this spot. Okay? So let me double check the syntax for that, because I did it over here. Yep, checkers, black cell, click. Oh, that's in board.js. Yep. Yeah, that's it. Unbind click. All right. So let's save it. See if it works. Hey, I just selected a checker, right? And I did not fire off that move checker method. Okay, so I click here. I see that it's selecting the checker. Okay, now if I select here, that's what moves the checker over to that spot. Okay, because that was an empty cell. Okay? Tracking? All right. Now we actually need to figure out what cell I clicked on so that we can actually move the checker to the right spot. Okay? But we have the action happening at the right place. Does that make sense, guys? And again, we're baby stepping. And remember what I said about breaking up problems? Okay? By taking, I'm not trying to solve the whole problem at once of coding it all up so that it'll move to the right spot, right? I just want the method to try to do the thing at the right time first. Okay? Once I know, okay, it's activating at the right time. It's firing. The event is firing at the right time. Now I can go ahead and try to actually get a checker to move to the right place. Okay? All right. So let's come back over here and move checker here is where we want to be. So in move checker here, Hope, would you grab that door for me if you don't mind? In move checker here, okay, we've just hard coded in where we're moving the checker, okay, to row 4, cell 1. So we actually need to get these values off of that off the cell that we clicked on. Okay, so we clicked on a cell, and let's take a look at one of these cells to see if there's any information on here that we can use. Okay, so if I click on this cell here, okay, I do have, you can see the row number and the cell number right there. Okay, so I could parse that ID to get the correct value from it. Does that make sense? Okay, that's one way to do it, and we'll go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to show you guys an easier way. Okay, but it is good to learn how to do string manipulation. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab the ID of the cell. Let's see if we've got that anywhere. I don't think we do. Okay, so if there's a checker selected, move the checker here. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to see if we can get the ID off of that checker. So remember, can anybody remember how to get the element that we clicked on? Or can anyone remember somewhere where we did that so that you can go look at that spot? Tell me, when did we get a handle, a jQuery handle, to an element that we clicked on? That's that is one way to get a handle. That's good, to an element. But we don't know what the ID of the element is at this point. In fact, that we're actually trying to get the element so we can get the ID off of it. Okay? But tell me a time where we clicked something and did something to it. We just talked about it, guys. Jesse, don't answer this question. When did we click on something and do something to it?
In the version that we have now, we're able to select it and then move it.
Select what?
The checker.
A checker. Okay. So I can select a checker and do something to that checker, right?
Yeah.
So then it makes sense that wherever I'm selecting the checker, the answer to the question of how to get a handle to this cell, right? How to know which cell I clicked on is probably answered in the place where I'm selecting a checker, because I had to know which checker I clicked on, right? So if I go look to see how I selected a checker, I'll probably know how to know which black cell I clicked on. So somebody tell me how I figured that out. What method is that?
Is the function selected checker?
Yeah, it's in the function select checker. All right. And so I've got the function select checker here. Someone tell me, looking at this, which line I used to find out what element I clicked on.
Is it the one with like let ID equals
Here?
checker? Yeah, that one.
No.
Is it the one before that?
Yes. Yep. Let checker equals this. Star this. Star this is whatever I just clicked on, or whatever element just, this method is getting called on. In this case, it's the click handler. Okay? But it could be, sometimes you guys have seen times when you hover over something, right? And it does something. So this would be the same for a hover handler, a click handler, on focus. Like there's so many different events, but anything that has an event, okay? If you want to know what thing is having the event, it's star this, okay? In jQuery, okay? Tracking, right? So that's why the reason why I asked you guys that question is you guys have to get in the handle. Like you can't remember all this. You can't remember everything, but you have to remember, and it's a lot easier to remember. When did I do something like this? Okay, I remember I had to click on a checker, and I had to know which checker I clicked on so that I could highlight the outside of it. Okay, in this case, I'm clicking on a black cell, and I need to know what black cell I clicked on so that I know where to move the checker. Right? So the first question of how do I know which black cell I clicked on is going to be answered where I figured it out before, when I figured out how do you know which checker I clicked on. Yeah? All right. Cool beans. So let's grab that. So star this is going to be what we want. So let's go back over here to board.js. We'll drop that here. And of course, we're not going to call this checker. We'll call it black cell. Right? So this is the cell that we clicked on. And while we're at it, let's just make sure that we got the right thing, right? Baby steps. Console.log.
Little tiny steps.
Yep. And black cell, comma, black. Can't type today, black cell. All right. Let's go to here, refresh this. All right, and let's click on a black cell. Let's go to our console. We'll clear the console for now. Let's click on the black cell. Okay. Things and select a checker foo. Fun. So let's go ahead and select a checker. We've selected a checker. All right, let's clear this out. And now we're going to click on the black cell again. Okay. And here we have black cell. Let's take a look at it. And it's highlighting the correct div, right? So we do, in fact, have a handle to the right, to the place where we clicked. And we can see it has an ID of 47. So if I could just get that ID and get the information off of it, right, then I'll know. Now, is there a place maybe where we've gotten information off of an ID before? Where might that be, Zoe?
Is it the get element by ID?
No. What?
Something.
It's probably near where we figured out what thing we clicked on. So where is that? Yep. Where is that?
Where you said it was.
Yeah. Yep. What is it?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Ava?
The same place you got the other element we just figured out.
What function's that?
Called. I'm still not sure what it's called exactly.
That's okay, but what function are you in?
Where we selected the checker.
Mm-hmm. And the name of that function is? The name of that function is?
Select checker.
Select checker.
Hey.
Yeah, there you go. It's always right up, like you can always just go up to where it says function, and that's the name of the function. So yeah, inside of select checker, we grab the ID from the checker, right? Oh, and look, hey guys, not only that, we did string parts and we split the checkers ID, right, to get the two parts, right? So we had we got string parts, and then the checker index was, string part 1, which is the second string part, right? So it's going to be probably pretty similar to get the to split up a row or a cell's ID, right? All right. Right. All right, so let's go ahead and give that a whirl.
Spinning world.
A whirl. All right. So we go over here to board.js, and we can grab the ID field, and so we can, hey guys, it's totally okay to just rip off some code, right? We did this before. Let ID equal this, okay? And so here we go. Let ID equal black cell. Okay, so that should give us the right ID. All right, and we can double check that by what? Console log, right? Console log ID. All right, let's see if we got the right. If we're able to get the right thing. All right, we select the checker, we click, and it says ID is 47, right? So that's good. And when we show the black cell, right, that's the right one we clicked. So we got the right thing. Now we need to split it. We need to split it based on hyphens again, right? So we'll end up with 3 parts. The first part, or the 0 part, will have the word cell in it, right here. The second part, or the 1 part, the index 1 is going to have the value of 4, and index 2 will have the value of 7. It'll be cell 4 7, right? A list like that, and the delimiters just get dropped off. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can do that again. Let's go over to checker where we've done it before. There's no need in reinventing the wheel. String parts. Okay, let's go grab that. We'll split the ID based on the string parts. Move this back up to here where we selected this cell. All right. And I guess we don't need to call it bacon. We can call it string parts. Or actually, maybe we'll call it ID parts. Probably a better name for it. All right. And let's refresh this, see what happens. So once you've done something, once you've done the hard work of figuring it out, like guys, it is so easy because there's so much to remember, right? So just remember that you did it, and then you can go back. And that's one of the reasons why I almost never throw away code. All right, so let's see here. Here we have ID 47, ID parts, and we have the 0 is cell, 1 is 4, and index 2 is 7. All right, so we have a list that goes cell 4 7, and we just need, ID parts 1 and ID parts 2, right? So that we know what so we can get our row and our cell. So our selected checker row is going to be, someone walk me through it. Jesse?
The checker row would be the 2 1, yeah.
It's going to be what?
The index of 1.
Index 1 of this, right? ID
Yes.
parts. All right, and then
And index of 2.
yeah, ID
Right.
parts 2. All right, then it's going to render the checkers. So let's go back over here, refresh this, and see if something maybe a little different happens this time. So we click on one of these. Ooh, that was kind of cool. Now, notice what's happening here, guys. What is happening? Yeah. nothing is happening. Okay. Right. Anybody have any ideas why? Well, by the way, I mean, like, that's great. We can now move to the right spot. Okay, that's a big win. Okay, but now nothing's happening. I can't select any checkers. Okay, anybody have any theories on why that is?
I didn't unselect the checker.
Maybe we can find out real quick. Let's go in here to.
Welcome.
So I can print selected checker, and you're right. I did not unselect the last checker. There it is. 4-3 is selected. So let's go. Where would I unselect the checker? When would I want to do that?
You could do it like in the same, either in the click handler or in the same place where you selected it. Which
Well-
would be the function.
So tell me when I want to do it.
After you move the check.
As soon as I finish moving the checker, right? Okay, which happens in move checker here. So if I've moved the checker, then I need to, and probably right before I render the checkers, okay, I need to go ahead and unselect that checker. So in that case, selected checker gets undefined. Okay, that effectively unselects it. Refresh this. And so I click a checker, and I'll click there, and it moved where it was supposed to. And
Amy has a question. Can I get let into the newsroom?
We'll take care of that.
now I still can't
Welcome.
select any of these checkers, but let's go check to see if the selected checker got unselected, and it did. Okay, so Ava, you were absolutely right about that being a problem, but
That was hope.
but it wasn't the problem that was, or it wasn't at least the only problem. Okay, there's at least one more problem. Okay, and this one's a little hard to think about. Okay, I'll give you a hint. All right, let me go back into board.js real quick, and I'm going to take this click handler. I'm going to move it up one row. I'm going to save it. I'm going to refresh the page. And now what do I have? Can't select anything, right? Why? Okay, I'm putting the click handler before I render the checkers. So I'm saying, go get all the checkers that are on the board right now, right? And give them a click handler. But how many checkers are on the board before I've rendered the checkers? 0, right? I'm doing the little 0 sign for the video. So hey, video guys, 0. All right. Yeah, none. There are none, right? So I go to add the click handler to nothing, and then I render the checkers. And okay. So if I go back here and undo what I just did, all right? Control Z is your friend. All right. Now that was your hint as to why we have this problem. Okay. I click this cell. I click here and it moves, and then I can't click any other ones. Why? How do I move? Walk me through the process of moving a checker.
You have to select it first, and then you click on the cell, and that causes it to move. Another black cell. But is it because, well, I was gonna just say it was, like she said, that the checker is, like, still selected.
That's not it. Amy.
Just because when you move the checker, you're re-rendering the checkers and you didn't put the handle back in.
Exactly. These are all brand new checkers. They've never existed before. Right? Well, I should say the elements, the div elements that hold the little stones in them, right? These guys. Remember, there's a difference between my data structure, which is, very good, Amy, these guys, right, which is sort of the logical representation of the board, Okay, this is really the real checkers, right? But you can't see these. This is just a bunch of numbers. So there's a difference between that and let me go inspect one of these. And this thing right here, that div. Those are two different things. One is an element on the page that is a representation of my board state. Okay? In other words, this is telling me what it looks like. Okay? And it's the thing that I have to click on. I actually have to click on that thing. But my real board is this logical list of checkers over here, right? So when I remove all those checkers from the board and re-render new checkers, those new checkers don't have click handlers. Does that make sense? Okay? Because they didn't exist a second ago. All the ones that did exist were removed. Okay? Yeah? So what makes the most sense is to take in board.js, take this click handler here, right? And to remove it from there, go into checkers.js, and instead I can put it right here. So every time I finish up rendering the checkers, I'm going to add the click handlers again, the checker click handlers again. Make sense? Okay. All right. So let's see if that makes things better. So I click here, click there, yay. Click here, click there, yay. Click here, click there. Oh, not yay. Oh. But I can click there. Oh, but I can't go there. Huh. Am I seeing a pattern? I can go there. I can't go there, or there, or there, or there.
You can't go to the squares for you.
Yeah, I can't go to the squares I've ever been. Now that would be an interesting game of checkers. Okay? Problem is the black squares also can't go to the checkers, can't go to the squares that I've been to. So it's going to be really short.
It's gonna be a draw pretty quickly.
So why is that, guys? Why are there no? Why can't I move to those checkers, those spots? There aren't click handlers after I've been in them, right? Why wouldn't there be? How did I keep those click handlers from happening at the same time? What did I do to keep the cell click handler and the checker click handler from firing at the same time? Exactly. I said when I put a checker in this spot, get rid of the cell's click handler, right?
Oh, so
If
every
the-
time you're moving there, you're getting rid of the click handle there.
Exactly. Every time I put a checker in a cell, I get rid of its click handler. Okay, I give now. What's the solution? It's going to be similar to the last one, but a little different, but definitely similar.
You want to tell it to put the click handle back on those squares when you re-render the checkers?
When I re-render the checkers, if there's not a checker in a cell, okay, I want to put the click handler back, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Or now that's seems a little bit complex, okay? Because I already figured out if I put click handlers on everything to start with and then just remove them whenever I put a checker down, that's simple, right? So here's another idea, guys. Maybe what I could do is when I render the checkers, I could start by putting click handlers on all the cells, right? I could put cell click handlers in, render the checkers, and just continue to remove them the way I've been removing. That would refresh all of the click handlers. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Zoe, it does not.
taking away your E until you're honest.
Yeah,
You're
so you only people that tell the truth get umlauts. So, no,
that face of
that was
deflation.
that was a good sad face, a good puppy dog face. Elijah, are you the youngest by any chance? No, my youngest has a pretty good puppy dog face. So,
Wait, so you're the middle child then?
well, she's
Kind of.
certainly not the oldest.
Yes,
Right.
I am. She's 14. I'm 15.
Oh, amazing. All right. So let's go back to checkers. What I need to do is I need these cells to get click handlers again, right? So let's look at how I did it before. In board.js, I said, hey, all black cells, get a click handler. And then I rendered the checkers, and in render checkers, I stripped out the click handlers, the cell click handlers, if I put a checker in the cell. So if I just take this, and instead of having it outside of render checkers, I just go put it inside of render checkers. Okay? So here, I clear the board, I add some click handlers, right? So now at this point, every black cell is going to have a click handler, right? Every black cell will try to move a checker there, whatever checker selected, right? Then I'll go through and I'll add all the checkers, removing the click handlers from the cells that I put checkers on. And then I will add the click handlers for all of the all those checkers. Make sense? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and see if that works. All right, click here, moves, here, moves, click here, and it moves back. All right, so there we go. And my black cell checkers those are super jumping checkers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're flying across the board.
Yep. It's checkers, but you're allowed to move 3 spaces at a time.
They're so excited
Okay.
that they're moving.
So, guys, we've definitely made some progress. There are still some bugs in here, and definitely some room for improvement. Okay. One of the things that I want to do though before we wrap up is get rid of some dead code. Okay. So if I go over here to board.js, remember this switch? Yeah.
Are we gonna give it a nice funeral?
Dun dun
Yes,
dun.
please.
Anyone want to play taps? Any band people in here? Nobody? No
I
band?
don't see anything.
No band nerds.
No band. I didn't say band nerds. I said band people. I guess you could say that because you were in the band, weren't you?
Nope, my roommate was, so
His
he was a
roommate.
band nerd.
Okay, there we go. Band people. Band human beings. I would never have said band nerd. I played football, and we were very inclusive because that's what football players are like. All right. Anyway, I guess we'll just have to do without tabs then, Amy. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Moment of silence. All
You
right.
won't be missed.
So let's first find all the dead code. All right. Before we were toggling the cells right here, right? And inside of toggle we called switch color, right? So we don't need to do either of those things now. Okay. Rendering the board we still do. Rendering the row we still do. Rendering the cell we still do. We still need to find parity. Okay. We still need to find the cell color. We're using that. Move selected checker. Clear board. Now, one thing that would probably be good in this clear board would be to also, in that spot, okay, because remember we're calling clear board right before we render the checkers. It would probably be good to also unbind all the all of those black cells click handlers. That way we're not putting a click handler on top of a click handler. It should just replace it, okay? But it's probably better to do it that way. Yeah? So, because right now, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I refresh this page. I didn't need to refresh it actually, because I didn't make any changes. But go to my console. Did I break something? No. Okay, good. So if I clear the board, everything disappears, right? But if I click on these cells, I've still got click handlers in there. Okay? So it'd probably be good if this, now there's no checker click handlers because the checkers are gone. But it'd probably be good to drop those click handlers inside of my clear board method. Okay? So over here, where's somewhere, oh gosh, if I could just remember somewhere where I had to remove click handlers. Where did I do that? How do I do that? Huh? When I'm moving checkers? Not moving them exactly. It's part of moving them.
When you remove them right before you add them again.
Okay, where is that? What's the function name? Render checkers. Yeah. Over in checker.js, render checkers, right? And what do I need to call on the element to remove a click handler? Go ahead.
Unbind?
Huh?
Unbind?
Unbind click. Yep. So this will unbind the click handler for whatever we call it on. So in this case, we're going to call it on the black cells. So first we say black cells, remove all the stuff inside of you, which would be checkers, right? But here we're also going to say unbind your click handlers. Okay? Make sense? Probably not. Honestly, it probably doesn't matter. It's just clean. Okay? It probably wouldn't cause you any errors because it's just going to get replaced later when we re-render the board. But now let me go in here and I'll call clear board. So this is like imagining I'm in that split second between calling like starting render checkers where I clear the board and then finishing render checkers. So clear the board and my click handlers are all gone in those middle cells. Okay? So that's a good thing to do. All right, so we've removed some code. We cleaned up a couple of things. Jumping over here into checkers. I don't think there's any dead code in here because this is all pretty new. Okay. Still have a few minutes. I'm going to show you one more thing that you can do to simplify your code a little bit. Okay. So one of the things to think about when you're writing software is to think about, when did I know something? Okay. So when I click on a cell or a checker, right? I knew at that point when I clicked on it, or when I rendered it, when I render a cell or a checker, okay, I knew what its row number was or its cell number was. I knew what its checker index was. I knew all those things, right? But then later on, when I'm selecting a checker, right, I'm having to figure out again, based on the ID of that thing, what its row number was or cell number was or its checker index. Okay? And so I have to, I've done logic to find the right cell and to put the checker there, but then I have to kind of redo some more logic to remember what was the checker index. Like if only I could have just taken a note, and you can. So instead, when I render the checker here, okay, one of the things that I can do, and I'll just give you an example with checker, I can add any what is the word I'm like, attribute, any attribute I want to an element. It doesn't have to actually be a real attribute, okay? Like I could call it bacon, okay? And inside of bacon, I could, yeah, we're using these double quotes. Class, yeah. So inside of bacon, I could put, say, the index, because remember I had right, the ID is checker I, right? If I had just over here, and if I had one thing and maybe it just had bacon and it was the I, then I could just, instead of having to split that ID to find what the checker index is, I could just get it off the bacon element, right? Now obviously we'll rename that to something better like checker index, okay? But if I save this,
But why would you use such an uncreative name?
I know, it's not very, like, expressive. So if I go inspect this cell now, okay, it's got bacon 10 on it. All right, and oh, there's a space in there, which we don't really want that space. I'm not sure why there's a space in there. Color checker. Oh, that's because I actually put it inside the class element for some ridiculous reason. Let's try that again. There we go, bacon 10. So now if I just go get my bacon, right, then I don't have to do all this splitting, right? So where do I get the checker index? Checker right here, right? So instead I can say let checker index equal checker dot attr bacon. All right, now this shouldn't change anything noticeable. The nice thing is I should be able to remove some code and make things simpler. So if I click on this and it selects, which it does, then everything worked. And so what I can do now is I can remove all of this code. Now doesn't that look simpler? Okay, so let me tell you, give you a quick story. Okay, the year is 1999. Yeah, we were getting ready to flip the millennium. I was taking a graphics class, and we had already figured out how to draw polygons on the screen. Okay, and so the polygon is, square, triangle, octagon, whatever. So we had figured out how to draw polygons, and now we were just trying to fill them in. And in class, the instructor had went through this elaborate process of redrawing the screen, right? And once you had clicked in, say, I want this polygon filled in, you would redraw on the screen. But the hard part was figuring out when you went into the polygon so that you could color it in, and when you came back out, because you have to draw the screen kind of like, from, like a typewriter, or like when you print something on a printer and you see, like, it has to go across in horizontal bars, right? So you're kind of going along the screen and all the little pixels on the screen. You guys know what pixels are because you know pictures, right? And that's how the computer draws. It draws from left to right, top to bottom, and so you're going along and you have to figure, oh, I just crossed the line again, so now I need to start filling in. And oh, I just crossed the line again, so I don't need to fill in, right? And then I'm coming back along, right? And that was a lot of work. And my classmates had been working on this project for almost a week, probably about 6 days. The lab, back then we didn't have laptops. I mean, they existed, but nobody used them. They were expensive and very, they just weren't very good. So everybody worked in the lab at the computer, or at the school. So the lab had been full for like 6 days. But I was stuck on this database project because I was taking 5 computer sciences at the same time, which, by the way, don't ever do that. It's a really bad idea. So I had a couple projects that were due the same day. And I finally finished up my database project. And I was the guy that a lot of people would come to and ask for help, because even back then I like teaching people stuff, right? So people kept asking me, like, hey Tony, like, have you worked on that database or on that graphics project? I'm having some trouble. And I'm like, no, I haven't even started. And they're like, oh, okay. And then the night of, they're like, the night before it's due, they're like, have you started? I'm like, no, I'm still trying to finish up database. And there are, of course, database people in there that were asking me for help. And I'm like, I still got to do the graphics project. Anyhow, long story short, 11 o'clock, I finished up the graphics project, or finished up the database project. And the graphics project is due the next morning at 8 a.m. It's 11 p.m. the night before it's due. I'm like, all right, guys, I'm starting the graphics project. And they're like, you are never going to finish, right? Because, everyone else had been in there working for a week. Well, little did they know, I was thinking this same thing. I was like, I already knew at one point where, like, when I was drawing a shape, like where all the lines were on the shape. And so why do I have to do all this work to figure out again if I'm crossing the line? I know where the line is, right? And so instead what I did was, rather than just drawing on the screen, I drew it on the screen, but I also kept this little, like a notebook over here. Like I kept a two-dimensional array, all right, that represented what was on the screen. So then I could just go look on that and with just a quick check, like, is this part of the line? Where everybody else is doing like 3 or 4 functions of stuff to determine whether or not a specific pixel was on the line, I just went over and said, hey, is cell 3-5 part of the line? And it would be like yes or no, right? And so I finished the project in 6 hours when everybody else had worked on it for like 6 days, and turned it in at 5 a.m. the next morning, everyone was like, now I didn't tell anybody how I did it, but the trick was, like, anytime in computer science when you feel like you're resolving a problem you've already solved, there's probably an easier way to do it. Now there's a trade-off. What I did used more memory, but you know what? Who cares? The computer's got lots of memory, right? And if you run into a performance issue, then you solve that problem later. Okay, make sense? All right, you guys get out of here. Go to class.
See ya.
See ya.